All right, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the tools in Pixlr. In order to do this, you need to go to pixlr.com. What you'll see when you go to pixlr.com, and actually you can just put in pixlr.com/editor, it's going to take you to a page where you can choose whether you want to create a new image or open an image from your computer or even open an image URL. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and just choose an image from your computer. You can use any picture that you have. And let's see, we're just going to go and select, let's see, how about this one? Nice picture of a road. And what I want you guys to do is to see how each of these tools affects this image. All right, so number one, what we can do is we can crop the image. This is the crop tool. Crop tool is really good for cutting out the stuff around an image. Now, what's really nice here is it shows you what's going to be cut out, and it also shows you rule of thirds lines. So if you want to try to create your image so that the main point of the image lines up with the rules of thirds or lines up with the center, that makes it easier for you to do that. I think I want to try to center it, so I'm going to do that and hit enter. So now we see that it cut out the stuff that was outside of that box. All right, let's see what else these tools can do. We have Move tool. The Move tool allows you to move the image. Now this image is locked. If we want to unlock the image, we have to double click this little lock over here on the layer, all the way over on the right. Now the layer says layer 0 and the little lock button isn't there. We can move this around. Now, why would you want to do this? This is if you want to move, if you have multiple layers and you want to move one. Since we don't have multiple layers, we don't really want to move anything here. Okay, now we're going to look at some selection tools. You have the Marquee tool. The Marquee tool can select a square area or rectangle, and that would allow you, if you go back to the Move tool, to move part of that. All right, let's just undo that. I hit Command Z or Control Z to undo. And if I want to unselect something, I can just click outside of the selection. If you go to the top here, we can also use an elliptical marquee, so we can select a circle. All right, now what if you want to select something that's not a circle or a rectangle? Then you can use the lasso tool. The lasso tool lets you draw a shape around whatever you want to select. It's a little messy though, so you have to be careful with that one. A real useful one is the polygonal lasso tool, which allows you to connect the dots around what you want to select. You just click on the corners, and then when you're done, click back where you started, and there you go. You can easily select just a single thing. Polygon lasso tool is really useful. You get to it by clicking up here. Then the last selection tool that you need to know about, let's get rid of this one, is the wand tool. The wand tool lets you select everything that's a similar color that's touching. So those areas there, those areas there. If we want to select more, you can actually hold down Shift so that you can add to your selection. And this actually works with any selection tool. If you want to unselect something, let's say I want to unselect some of the bottom here or deselect, I can hold down Control, or yeah, I can hold down the Control button and, oops, it doesn't work too well. On my computer, it doesn't work too well because it's a Mac, but you can hold down Control and you should be able to deselect some part of it. So let's look at some different tools here in Pixlr. You have the pencil tool that allows you to draw lines on your image. You can see very faintly the line that I drew there. That's not a tool that you're going to use so much though. If you want to draw lines, usually you're going to want to use the brush tool. The brush tool allows you to choose the thickness of the brush. You can do that by going up here. You have a bunch of different thicknesses. You have hard brushes, which have a real easy to see edge. And then you have softer brushes, which have more of a blurry edge. And you even have different shaped brushes that you can choose. If you want to customize, you can slide these to make the brush diameter larger. You can make it softer or more blurry, in other words. Or you can make it harder by pushing that all the way up. So let's see what that looks like. just drawing a big black line across the picture. Obviously, we don't want to do that. Let's look at what the eraser tool does. The eraser tool allows us to erase part of the image, and you'll see what's underneath. Those little squares show you that there's nothing underneath. And just like with the brush tool, you can make the eraser tool bigger or smaller. You can make it soft edge or hard edge. You can make it different shapes. So you can play around with that a little bit. I want to undo all of that because I don't want to erase any of this picture right now. All right, there's some other tools here that you can also use. You have the gradient tool. The gradient tool allows you to create a gradient on your image, and you can change what kind of gradient you want. You can change the color that's in that gradient. See how that looks. I click on the color that I want to change. I have to slide this all the way over to this side so it'll be a color instead of black. And then I can hit OK, and now it's going to have a green gradient. And to make that gradient on my page, I just make a line across the page in the direction that I want that gradient to go, and it replaces my picture with a gradient. Now, if you don't want to completely replace the picture, but you just want to put a gradient on top of it, that's where you can adjust the opacity here. You can push the opacity down, and I can make a gradient go across my picture like this. So it does different things. But the gradient tool, it makes a gradient on your picture. So that's the important thing you need to know. The bucket tool, it drops a color on top of your picture. So right now here you can see this is dropping black. It's much like the magic wand tool in that it goes over all the pixels of the same color that are close to each other. So let's do that. Let's undo all that. Of course, if you wanted to just cover the whole picture, like the gradient tool did, what you would need to do is click over here on the layer box, hit new layer, and drop a color on that new layer. Now everything that you had is still there. If we go to the move tool, we can move this layer. You can see that it's still underneath. These are like layers of paper on top of each other. But we'll just get rid of that layer because we don't need that. I'll teach you more about layers later. Right now, I want to go through all these tools. You have the clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool actually allows you to select an area and replace it with another area. So if I want to select, I'm going to hold down Control or Command in my case, and I'll click on the area I want to copy, and then I'll click on the area that I want to copy it to, and I'll just click there. And as I move, I can copy it multiple times. So this can be useful for actually erasing something if you do it right. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do it the way that I just did. That doesn't look good. But the clone stamp tool allows you to copy something. If you click aligned, you can actually select an area to start. And oops, I want to do command. You select an area to start, and you can just start drawing, and it'll just replace that area with everything on the other area. So that can work. All right, so you got the clone stamp tool. It lets you copy. The color replace tool, it's much like the brush, as you can see, but it replaces, instead of replacing everything in the image like we did with the black, this is just replacing the color with a different color. So it's the color replace tool. Makes sense. All right, you have the drawing tool, which lets you just draw shapes. So if you want to put random shapes into your picture, there you go. If you want to switch it to circles or lines, you can do that. And then we have the blur tool, which lets you blur part of an image. I've got a nice big brush set here. Let's go to 200, and let's click and see if we can see the blur on it. You can't really see the blur because it's zoomed out a lot. Now, if you go over here to the navigator bar, you can, and then you can see the blur. You should be able to see it now. That's the blur tool. The sharpen tool does the opposite. It can take a blurry area and make it more sharp by enhancing the contrast of the pixels there. And that's all the time we have for today.